might actually be able to save you a bit of time right at the beginning of this video, because if you're looking to answer the question, is TTL better than manual flash, or should I use TTL or should I use manual flash? The answer is, well, it depends. And that's not particularly helpful, but that is the truth, because TTL flash has come on a really long way and it is really versatile. I use it a lot of the time, but I use manual flash most of the time. And in this video, I'm going to show you when TTL is the way to go for me and when manual flash just makes much more sense. I'll give you some real world examples. Hopefully we'll take some good photos along the way. One thing you definitely do need if you're going to do TTL flash is a TTL compatible flash like the Flashpoint I've got here, and a TTL compatible trigger for your camera, which actually I haven't got here. You'll find links to all the gear I'm using in the video description below. So I think the place I'm going to begin is with TTL flash. So let's get a light set. Yep, done. Let's get a model in. Let's get shooting. So to help me out today, I've got the amazing Chloe. Chloe's going to be the model for this photo session. And before we get started with the TTL flash, I need to take a really important picture because I need control of these room lights. So I've got my camera set to some default settings that aren't going to change during the session. I'm a flash sync speed of 250th of a second. Yours might be slightly different. f5.6 as a good aperture to work in here, and ISO 200, the native ISO for my camera, and no flash gives me this, no picture. So if I switch my transmitter on, I've got it set to TTL mode. I've got a Flashpoint Explore 300, which is a TTL compatible flash. All I have to do is just press the shutter and then everything else will happen automatically. At least that's the idea. Let's see if it works. Okay, Chloe, here we go. Quick little test photo. And it really does work. It's that simple. I've got great exposure on Chloe. The background is grey, exactly as it should be. Yeah, I mean, you don't have to do any more work than that. It's amazing. Of course, one of the advantages of TTL flash is you don't have to spend any time setting the flash up. So if I move the flash, I don't have to worry about recalculating the exposure. It does it all for you, which means if you need to work quickly, TTL is a great resource to use. So I think we should actually put that to the test. I think we should have 3 crazy minutes of photography and see how many pictures we can get in 3 minutes. Are you up for that, Chloe? All right, let's get the clock started. Are you ready?
3, 2, 1, go.
Okay, go back against the wall. Let's just leave the flash where it is. I don't have to worry. I don't have to worry. I can just take some pictures. I'll turn the flash on because that really helps. Here we go. And just to be clear, I am just going to take 3 minutes, 1 take, no second chances at this, and you will see all of the photos in just a moment. Three minutes. That was amazing. In 3 minutes, I actually don't know how many pictures we've got. I'll put it on the screen at the bottom. And they're all, on the whole, fantastic. TTL, it's fantastic. Why would you want to use anything else? I'm just going to interrupt myself for a moment. Hello, future Gavin here with a bit of a cold. The 31 images that I took in those 3 minutes all look really good. Individually, you can pick any image and think, yeah, that worked out really nicely. I mean, I like the lighting, I like the posing. That wasn't a great one, but hey, wasn't terrible. And you know, that looks pretty good. And this looks pretty good. The thing is, if you want to take them as a whole, they're not quite as even and consistent as I would want, particularly the exposure on Chloe's face. So for example, I can choose an image, let's go with this one here, where the exposure looks absolutely fine. The next one, it looks a little bit bright. Okay, I move the light, that's perhaps not too bad. And that's a little bit bright as well. That's a little bit darker, that's okay. And that's gone mad. So when you start to look at these things a little closely, TTL is doing what it's supposed to do. It's giving you auto exposure, but it doesn't know exactly what your exposure should be. So if you're after a consistent workflow, then TTL isn't necessarily going to help you at the post-processing stage, but certainly made it a lot more fun at the photography stage. And with that in mind, let's go back to the video. You see, TTL doesn't always get it right. I mean, it gets it right most of the time, but as you get more complicated with your lighting, the chances of TTL failing definitely increase. So let's set it up to fail. I put the light behind Chloe. I'm going to photograph in this direction. TTL doesn't know I'm doing that, and it'll try and get everything correctly exposed as the camera sees it. Let's just take a test photo and see what happens with TTL and backlighting. Okay, Chloe, here we go, quick little test photo. And I can hear it's TTL, it has that TTL double pop sound, and looking at the photos, that's not quite what I'm after. It's tried to light the shadow side of Chloe's face by throwing loads of light into this picture. Yeah, good try, but TTL can't read your mind. Now, I can control it by adjusting the TTL exposure. I can actually dial in -2 stops of exposure compensation and tell the TTL system that whatever meter reading you think is right, underexpose that by 2 stops. It'll do this. Okay, here we go, Chloe. And this time, I've retained the highlight detail. I've got the moody shadows that I was after. That's great. Now I've got a TTL exposure that I'm happy with, I actually want to lock this in as a manual exposure, because I'm going to take a whole series of pictures where the flash isn't going to move and Chloe isn't going to move. So to convert TTL to manual, I actually have a button on my flash transmitter called TCM, TTL Convert to Manual. And I'm going to press and hold the TCM button for a few seconds, and it will convert this into a manual exposure, which is 1/32 power. And that's it. I now know exactly what exposure I need, and it's not going to change for the rest of the session because it's now in manual mode. So I can take another picture. Here we go. And I can keep going, and it's always going to be the same settings. So I think we should do that. Chloe, are you ready? Okay, let's take some photos like this. For the TCM button to work accurately, remember to set it up in the transmitter menu before you start your session and choose the closest flash power to the one you're actually using. Whether the exposure is right or wrong, you can see that these are the same all the way around. So I'm getting consistent exposure on Chloe and the background, even when I'm moving myself around the scene. For the last setup, I thought I'd push TTL really hard because I've not got one light, I've not got 2 lights, I've got 3 flashes. They're all on TTL flash, they're all TTL flashes, and they're all doing different things. I've got a backlight, a hair light, and a key light. I'm not going to change anything, I'm just going to take a TTL picture at TTL 0. Let's see what it does. Okay, here we go, quick little test photo. And just for the fun of it, I've gone wide open f1.4 high-speed sync flash. And to be fair, I've got an exposure that is okay. The trouble is, that's not what I want. What I'd actually like is less light in the background, more light from the key light and the hair light. I can't even tell what that's doing because I'm seeing 3 lights together. I could break this down 1 TTL light at a time, set each one individually. That would work, but I'm going to use manual mode. It's going to give me total control. Chloe isn't moving, the lights aren't moving. Once they're set, they'll be set forever until I change them. So I'm going to switch off all of the other lights and start with just the background light. And, well, how am I going to work out how bright to make that background light? Well, I'm going to put it at 1/8 power and see what I get. Okay, Chloe, here we go. And what I get is obviously no light on Chloe, but I get light on the background. That's way too bright. I want to take that down probably 2 or 3 stops. So let's go down to 1/64 power and see what we get. Here we go. And that's more what I'm after. I'm after that little hint of light back there without it becoming overpowering of the scene. So that's set. And the way I've done this is trial and error. So with manual metering, trial and error is exactly what it sounds like. You take a picture, you review, you adjust, you take another picture, you review, you adjust. And I can do the same thing with the hair light as well. So let's switch off the background light. Let's switch on the hair light. Let's start at 1/8 power, middle of the road, see what we get. Here we go. And that's just going to put a little bit of light on Chloe's hair and her shoulder. And at 1/8 power, yeah, that's maybe just a little bit too bright. I'm going to take it down 1 stop to 1/16 power. and that's great. For the key light, I could use trial and error and get the exposure right. It would work just fine, or I could do it more manually by using an actual old school flash meter. These work really well. They're very reliable, very consistent, and you'll find links to all of the gear I'm using in the video description down below. All I have to do is dial in my shutter speed on my camera, my ISO on my camera, and hold the flash meter near Chloe's chin. Chloe, I'm going to hold this near your chin, pointing at the light you want to meter, and I get a meter reading, an aperture of f1.1. Now I'm working at f1.4, so I need more light. So I'm going to increase that light up to 1/4 power because I started at 1/8 power. It's a great place to begin if you're not sure where you're going. I've got my light set to f1.4. I can take a test photo just using the key light only. And that gives me perfect lighting on Chloe. And as long as Chloe doesn't move, the light doesn't move, that exposure will always remain the same. And with all of the lights on together, they give me this as a result, which is controlled light, which gives me the lighting that I wanted rather than the light that the flashes thought was correct. And that's really everything set up. So Chloe, if you're ready, let's take a few photos like this. Here we go. If you want to find out more about high-speed sync flash, which is what I'm using here, we've got videos right here on Adorama TV. Go check out our playlists for more information. Probably figured out my preference for TTL or manual flash, but to be clear, I love TTL flash for anything that involves fast moving action or moving the light quickly, which for me is a lot of the time is experimenting with lighting. For things that are a bit more considered and anything with more than 2 lights, I definitely prefer manual flash. So what about you? Are you a TTL photographer, a manual flash photographer, or like me, do you sit in both camps quite happily? Let me know in the comments down below. And whilst you're there, if you've got any questions, pop them down there as well. And of course, if you haven't already done so, click on the thumbs up button because I presume you've enjoyed this video. You're still watching it after all. And of course, click on that subscribe button. I'm Gavin Hoey. Thanks for watching.